So I don't want the significance of what happened in Venezuela to be lost on any of you. It wasn't simply a move on Venezuela. It is the beginning of something much larger. I told my audience several weeks ago about the Monroe Doctrine, because for years we were told that it was dead, a relic of the 1800s with no place in modern geopolitics. And Trump has now proven that it may have never disappeared, because his national security strategy quietly brought it back, and Venezuela was where it was now enforced. You may as well call it the test case, because when the United States moved decisively against Nicolás Maduro, it wasn't just about one regime or one area or one country. It was about redrawing boundaries. And guess what happened? China noticed. Russia recalculated. Iran, attempted a response. And America's neighbors paid very close attention. I'm going to break down what this Monroe Doctrine really means in the 21st century, why Venezuela just became the test case, and whether enforcing it protects the Western Hemisphere or opens a new era of global power competition. And based on the responses and the reactions, once boundaries return, everything changes. And the only question you should be asking is, what happens next? Did President Trump just open Pandora's box, or did he reestablish U.S. dominance? It's a story and the angle that you're only going to get here, and we'll continue on in just a few seconds.
Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro suggesting he's open to talks with Washington following months of American military pressure. In an interview on state TV, Maduro said, quote, "wherever they want and whenever they want," in a reference to a dialogue with the U.S. on drug trafficking, oil, and immigration. To date, Maduro has not confirmed a U.S. land attack on a docking facility in his country. U.S. forces have also carried out numerous strikes on suspected narco boats since September, killing more than 100 people.
Now, wait 1 minute. How do we go from him wanting to suddenly come to the table to, him being in a helicopter flying back to the United States, now under arrest? People probably woke up a little confused this morning, and that's all right. You have every right to be, but you see, a message was sent yesterday. A lot of people not even realizing that the Chinese delegation also landed in Venezuela yesterday. See, Trump had his own message to send, and that message was heard. Same day, same country, but a very strong message. And it all ties into something much larger. Maduro again saying, "I'm ready to make a deal." Well, that deal was not taken, now was it? Those are images no leader wanted by the United States ever wants to see. President Trump announcing, as you see here, the United States of America. Don't worry, we're going to get to the actual larger picture of this story here quickly. The United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolás Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. Details to follow. There will be a news conference, and we listened to that news conference. Not a whole lot of details. Not relevant to this story. Pam Bondi announcing Nicolás Maduro and his wife have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. Nicolás Maduro has been charged with narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, a conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices against the United States. They will soon face the full wrath of American justice on American soil in American courts. But that is just the tip of the spear, isn't it? The story is far larger than any of this. And it goes back into President Trump's national defense strategy. Now, of course, he did have a little fun with this, didn't he?
Tell us where Maduro and his wife are right this second.
They're on a ship, but they'll be heading into New York. The helicopters took them out, and they went by helicopter in a nice flight. I'm sure they loved it. But they've killed a lot of people. Remember that. They killed a lot of people. And
of course, our Democrats here won't remember that now, will they? No, it will be Orange Man bad again, as always. But let's look at the responses here from the international community. And it will tie into what the Monroe Doctrine is, and will tie into the national defense strategy. Then we'll start to understand what comes next. And that is the critical portion of this, because this is one man who effed around and found out. But it's much larger than that. This is control of the Western Hemisphere we're looking at. Before I move forward, huge favor, only going to take a few seconds. I want you to stop everything you're doing. There you go. Do me a favor. Make sure you're still subscribed to Lisa's channel. Make sure your bell is checked to all. We'd love you to provide a comment and a share. It means the world to us. She'll also put a link to our other channel, which is mine. Love you to subscribe there. And also, our home news platform. If you don't know it yet, I hope you do. I really do. RestrictedRepublic.com. We work day and night to keep that platform full of news that matters. No commercials, no interruptions. All our broadcasts on all the public platforms, plus exclusive content. At least 5 days a week, I continue my podcast there, the exclusive extended version. On top of what Lisa puts there exclusively, I can't tell you how big that catalog is. And you have your own dashboard. You can cancel anytime, monthly and annual subscriptions available. It's your means of supporting us to keep these lights and cameras on. We want you there today. RestrictedRepublic.com. Go ahead. Only takes a second. You got 14 days for free. At least give it a look. Try it out. I promise what you'll see will keep you there for a long time to come. But now let's get back to this broadcast. So what did Russia respond with? Because remember, they're strange bedfellows. Russia, Venezuela, China, Iran. So much of these BRICS nations, huh? The U.S. committed an act of armed aggression against Venezuela, which gives rise to deep concern and warrants condemnation. The pretexts used to justify these actions are untenable. Russia reaffirms its solidarity with the Venezuela people. Okay. Iran, of course, condemns the U.S., but Iran's got its own set of problems now, don't they? They got people marching in the street against the regime. We know what they've already said about Trump. Iran's New Year's resolution: threaten the U.S. military and hope for the best. But with what you just watched, man, you better be very concerned about the man you're threatening, because you've now seen he's not afraid to take action. But again, bigger picture here. If Iran shoots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States will come to the rescue. We are locked and loaded and ready to go. And now he proves he is locked and loaded and ready to go. So I'd really watch that commentary for a little while. But let's move forward. Because the EU, which we didn't expect that much out of anyway. I've spoken with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and our ambassador in Caracas. The EU is closely monitoring the situation in Venezuela. The EU has repeatedly stated that Mr. Maduro lacks legitimacy and has defended a peaceful transition. Under all circumstances, the principles of international law and the UN Charter must be respected. We call for restraint. Oh, jeez. Can you actually just state anything straight? Of course you can't. Unreal that the EU can't even as much as condemn such a textbook act of aggression after spending the past 3 years lecturing the world on the need to defend inviolability of these principles. Ukraine set aside, think about the precedents this sets for Greenland. And then we go to Keir Starmer out of the UK, shrugs, using an ambiguous and cautious statement. He stated, I want to establish the facts first. I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to his allies. I can be absolutely clear that we're not involved. I always say and believe we should all uphold international. I'm not involved. Keir Starmer, man, what a dynamic leader he is. Now Mexico, of course, just lost a huge pipeline for themselves, didn't they? The Mexican government strongly condemns and rejects military actions carried out unilaterally in recent hours. But we can just wipe Mexico away because, man, they just got themselves in a whole world of hurt now, didn't they? Brazilian president, what do you think? Of course, condemns the U.S., attacking countries in flagrant violation of international law. The government of Colombia rejects the aggression against the sovereignty of Venezuela and of Latin America. Cuban president, it's a criminal act, adding that our zone of peace is brutally assaulted. But are you really all surprised? Do you not understand what President Trump stated? He made it really clear, but Maduro said he was ready to make a deal. Sure he was. He had more than enough time. J.D. Vance came out and said President Trump gave him multiple opportunities. But Maduro now stating, right before all this happened, the U.S. government knows because we told many of their spokespeople that if they want a serious discussion, an agreement to combat drug trafficking, we're ready. Now they were ready? Of course they weren't. They never had any intention on being ready. But see, something larger was brewing. China. Maduro receives Chinese representative hours before Trump's claim he's been captured. Chinese joint oil venture partner installs drilling rig with Venezuela. Remember, Venezuela has 600,000 Chinese citizens. Putin tells the U.S. to stop Coast Guard pursuit of rogue tankers. You see, there's a lot of interest in Venezuela. And Venezuela serves as a strategic point in securing the Western Hemisphere. And when Russia and China start showing support for Venezuela, well, President Trump all but didn't have a choice but to react. He's made his position clear.
Just a blockade. Not going to let anybody going through that shouldn't be going through. You remember they took all of our energy rights. They took all of our oil from not that long ago, and we want it back. But they took it. They illegally took it.
It's a blockade. We will control what goes through. What else do you expect? They've taken a lot of stuff from us, and we want it back. National Security Strategy of the United States of America. I've told people to read this. I've reported on what this strategy means because it is a different sort of strategy. It is a strategy that revives what is called the Monroe Doctrine. I warned everyone to be prepared for what was to come when this strategy came out, and Venezuela was now the testing grounds for it. So let me give you a synopsis of what happened here. Because for 200 years, the Monroe Doctrine was one of the most misunderstood and most powerful ideas in American foreign policy, period, bar none. It wasn't about conquests. It wasn't about empire. It was about what is called, you ready for this? Boundaries. Which obviously the prior administration had a lot of problems with what is called boundaries. What has President Trump done? He's really focused on boundaries and borders. In 1823, the United States declared that the Western Hemisphere would not be open to foreign empires. No European colonialization, no external power politics. In exchange, the U.S. would largely stay out of European wars. That doctrine shaped American strategy for generations to come. Then, in the late 20th century, quietly faded, replaced by globalism and the idea that borders mattered less than systems. President Trump's national security strategy reversed that assumption, turned it upside down. Not rhetorically either, operationally. The strategy revived the logic of the Monroe Doctrine by reasserting a simple principle. And the mainstream media didn't report it this way because they didn't want you to understand it was this simple. The Western Hemisphere is a vital U.S. security zone, and hostile extra-regional powers will not be allowed to establish strategic footholds here. Period. This matters because once a doctrine is enforced, it stops being theory. Venezuela is where that enforcement now became visible. The national strategy is no longer theory. Under Nicolás Maduro, Venezuela was no longer treated as a dysfunctional state alone. It was framed as a platform, A platform for what? Good question. Russian security cooperation, Iranian financial and intelligence networks, Chinese economic leverage and infrastructure control, and transnational criminal organizations operating with state protection. Under Monroe Doctrine and its logic, that combination crosses the red line. The doctrine doesn't require ideological alignment. It requires strategic denial. No hostile powers centered near U.S. borders. Done. That's why U.S. action against Maduro, whether described as captured, removed, or forcefully displaced, wasn't framed as nation building. It was framed as hemispheric enforcement. Don't miss that point. And once that happened, every major power reacted not emotionally, but strategically. So let's start with China. Beijing didn't see Venezuela as a moral issue. It saw precedent. China studies one question above all others. What behavior is now acceptable? What it saw was a U.S. willing to act decisively, not everywhere, but where geography mattered most. That does not give China a clean go signal on Taiwan. At least we must hope not, because that very well may be what comes next. In fact, it complicates China's decision-making, because Monroe-style enforcement tells Beijing this: when the U.S. draws a boundary, it may actually enforce it. That raises the cost of miscalculation, making what some will declare as China's next move a little bit more difficult. Now, Russia. Moscow's concern wasn't outrage, it was loss of leverage. Venezuela is part of Russia's strategy of asymmetric pressure, small investments, big strategic annoyance. Removing that foothold forces the Kremlin to reassess whether the world is returning to spheres of influence. Here's the dangerous question. If the U.S. enforces the Monroe Doctrine, does that legitimize Russia enforcing its own regional doctrine? Does that mean Ukraine? Not automatically. Not automatically. But it does mean deterrence now hinges on clarity. If red lines are defined and enforced, escalation becomes riskier. If they're vague, testing becomes tempting. That's the gamble President Trump just took. And it's a big frickin' gamble. Iran understood this fastest. Now we have to go backwards. Iran's power depends on distance, proxies, networks, deniability. Oh, they're the frickin' kings of it, aren't they? A Monroe-style America dismantling foreign platforms close to home signals something uncomfortable for Tehran. Very uncomfortable. This is why they've been saber-rattling so much recently. Long-range influence only works when the host power tolerates it. That tolerance just disintegrated. President Trump destroyed it. And what about Mexico? Mexico's response wasn't quiet, but telling. Because when Monroe Doctrine becomes active policy, neighbors matter more. Actually, in some ways, almost matter most. Mexico suddenly occupies a critical role in trade corridors, migration enforcement, energy and supply chains, and regional stability. Huge issue for them. Neutrality becomes harder. Alignment becomes more valuable. That is what the Monroe Doctrine really does. You play ball, or you become what just happened to Venezuela. It doesn't just constrain enemies, it reorders relationships. So did Trump just open up Pandora's box? It's a good question. Here's the truth. The box was opened decades ago, when globalism pretended geography no longer mattered. Trump didn't open it. And that's what you're going to be told. He didn't open it. He acknowledged it existed. By enforcing hemispheric boundaries, the U.S. signaled a return to a world where power is regional, lines are real, and enforcement matters. And he just did that overnight. That world is more honest, but it is also more dangerous. And a lot of people won't have the stomach to tolerate it. Because once the Monroe Doctrine is real again, everyone else starts dusting off their own version. And that is the trade-off shaping the future of global politics. That is what just happened last night. It wasn't all about Nicolás Maduro. It was a reshaping of the entire global political landscape, brought to you by President Trump. What say you? Do you agree or disagree? I look forward to your comments below. I love you all. My job to make you think, and I certainly hope I just did that. If I did, get to restrictedrepublic.com right now. Support us. It means the world to us. We love you all. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless Justice Knight. Signing out.